It is Wednesday night, and I'm John Guy. Welcome to the show. Who's with me tonight?
I'm Eli Racovich with Gracie the Wiener Dog.
Well, it's just the three of us. We've got 30 minutes to solve a problem, and I've got a problem that's been bugging me all week long. And I think we can solve it very simply and very reasonably, Eli. I couldn't help but notice that we taxpayers evidently were paying for someone to walk the attorney general's dog this past week.
Holy cow. I love dogs. I'll do it. I'm sure it was for an exorbitant rate.
It probably was, and I would imagine he had to go with a pooper scooper, which that's got to be a little bit demeaning. But again, we've talked about this before, Eli, the abuses of power.
Absolutely. You know, you talk about pooper scoopers. With my opinion of DC, I would put it to good use in both houses of Congress.
Well, and it seems that both houses of Congress are pretty non-functional. The executive branch is pretty non-functional. I'm not quite sure what's holding our Democratic Republic together.
Well, it's like my core belief for my job, John. You and I both are have been law enforcement officers. I've been doing it 30 years this month. One could get jaded, but I don't. I firmly believe that 95 to 98% of the people I come in contact are good people. And I believe that about the public in general. I think America is a good place. It's got flaws, but we're constantly improving on them, despite Washington's best efforts to divide us and keep us ignorant.
And we've talked in the past about term limits, of course, and you and I both know that'll never get through Congress.
No, sir.
Those are career politicians. And as long as we've got, I think, a democratic republic, we're going to have career politicians, and they're going to be raping and abusing us. That being said, what do you think of this solution, Eli? I'm so disgusted with our government, and it just, seemingly they can't handle a pandemic. They blame everybody. They cover their asses. Everything is political. Go ahead.
When I look at the political situation now, it reminds me of something I was just watching on television 5 minutes before the broadcast. I was watching professional wrestling. All our political system in Washington is feigned disgust or feigned caring, or it's all almost like a script. It's almost like watching professional wrestling.
This past week, our current president announced that he was not going to hang the portrait of the previous president. We were not going to have sort of a mini celebration like we have for, 44, 45 presidents previous. He's just not going to hang Barack Obama's picture in the White House. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's junior high mentality.
And that's exactly the crud that I'm talking about.
And so, we get bombarded, whether you're watching Fox or MSNBC or not watching anything at all. It's the same end result. And after a while, I know you don't get jaded at your job, but I've lost complete confidence in our form of government. It doesn't seem to be working.
It is just a giant, inept pile of doo doo.
Well,
It's so big. It's like in a perpetual motion. It only survives because it's so big that you can't stop the momentum. And all the solution to everything about this C-19 is spend, spend, spend. You and I can't do that. Our wonderful producer Breck can't do that. We all three have finite income. So does the government. Their income comes from us, and somebody's gonna have to pay this back someday. And my grandkids are probably going to live in a third world country because of it.
yeah, we're all joyful that we get a stimulus check, but there are strings attached. Now, you got a stimulus check, right, Eli?
Got it today, John.
Did you really? In the mail or direct deposit?
Direct deposit.
Okay. Congratulations. I got mine a week and a half ago, something like that, in the mail. And the government cannot just give away money and have no consequences. The county that I live in here in Arizona, my county sued the state because the state gets this giant stimulus check from the federal government. I don't know, $18 billion. In Pinal County, which is, I don't know, probably the fourth biggest county in the state, got zero. The city that I live in, which has about 60,000 people, got zero. The state decided in their infinite wisdom to keep all that money for Phoenix and Tucson. And what's interesting to me is that this virus, this pandemic, it really doesn't care where you live or what you do or how much money you make. If it's going to get you, it's going to get you. And this whole notion of, oh, well, they're a small town, therefore they get zero, is asinine. It's maddening. And so my county today sued the state, which I find really peculiar. Now, that being said, again, it is a dysfunction of the government and what's going on. So, how do we solve this, Eli? Term limits is never going to get through Congress.
Oh,
Okay.
we need, and it'll never happen. We need a real balanced budget amendment. I really appreciate the work of Milton Friedman, and I would not like to study economics under AOC. That said, we could balance the budget prior to the C-19 fiasco merely by freezing spending. I've read that the budget would balance itself if we froze spending for 10 years. People are going to whine and go crazy, but we both know our budget is just so full of pork, it's ridiculous. Okay, well, let's put a 1 or 2% cap on spending and take 20 years to balance it.
I think you possibly just set a record for the Stables Network. This is probably the very first podcast to mention Milton Friedman.
A wise man.
A wise man. And yet, I'm not sure both of our listeners know who the hell we're talking about. But that's okay. That's all right. I'm impressed that you would actually put Friedman into our discussion at all. Now, I do have a solution. I studied various governments. I was a political science major in college. So I know how the governments in foreign countries operate for the most part. Uganda's government under Idi Amin, wow, talk about a government that was run correctly, or else you'd be dead.
Absolutely. In all seriousness, John, a government that I point out to people, and I'm not advocating socialism, I'm not advocating, but if you look at Yugoslavia in the 60s and 70s under Tito, by far the most productive and well-off country in Eastern Europe. Yugoslavia was the dream that other Eastern European countries wanted to be. Tito, and I'm not a Tito fan. I mean, my grandfather brothers were Chetniks, Serbian Chetniks.
Okay.
Tito hated with a passion, and vice versa. But he grasped not necessarily free market economics, but he knew that if he could blend socialism and the free market, that the country would be successful. And it was up until his death. And I remember telling my ex-wife the day he died, I said, it's going to explode and go to Hades within 2 or 3 years after his death. It took a little longer, but it happened. We need a strong person. We need an absolute strong-willed leader to get elected who will, if we solve the budget crunch, John, I think we're going to solve so many other problems.
What would you say if the answer to the problem was that we disband our government?
I realign it, perhaps.
How would we realign?
We would have economic zones, geozones. The things that work in New York do not work in Indianapolis.
Correct.
The things that work in Indianapolis don't work in Texas. But, Ohio and Illinois drive the Midwest. Okay, so they will be the focal point of the Midwest, upper Midwest zone. If we could get a governor in California that had a lick of sense, California could, or Washington even, could handle that geozone. Down south, southern Midwest, I want Texas. Florida, very sound economic state. They can handle the Southeast.
Well, and Florida does not have, they don't have a state tax, do they?
They do not have a sales tax, and they're one of the most solvent states. Everyone teases and makes fun of Florida, and we ride Peggy pretty hard, but they're very, very solvent. I forget them, and believe it or not, little Indiana, we have some of the best state governments in the union. We have huge surpluses. So obviously, our state legislatures and governors, as a general rule, know how to get things done, know how to balance budgets, and hence my geo zone. Like, New York City is bankrupt in the state of New York. Well, I hate to say it, but we're solvent here in Indiana. We're pretty frugal with money. I don't want to bail out New York because you can't stop spending. I'm sure Florida doesn't want to. I'm sure Texas doesn't want to bail out Louisiana. But I put Louisiana in Texas's geo zone. Let the geo zones work together, and then our federal government would be people that the geo zones send to the houses of Congress, and let's reduce the size of Congress.
Why do we need Congress?
We need somebody to negotiate those geo zones, John, to meld us into a one unit. It'd be almost like think of it like operations in police work. Then you've got the
Sure.
detectives, and you've got the crime lab, you've got the jail division. They all have representatives or chiefs that meet to get everything done. The geo zones send X number of people to Washington. Certainly, we don't need all of them that we have now. And I think if you get a room with 50 people in it max, or maybe 35, you're going to get more things done than having a house with hundreds of people in it, half of whom are asleep or reading a newspaper while discussion's going on.
And the other half are going out soliciting money.
Yeah. I want spending cap or income caps only for members of our Washington delegates. Let's cap all senator pay $225,000 from all sources. That's the max. House of Rep, let's limit that to $175,000. Make it to the point where you're not going to have a net worth of $40 million because you're in Congress for 20 years.
Right.
If you earn $40 million, more power to you, but you're going to do it outside Congress because you're going to legislate, not spend 90% of your time getting campaign funds or taking graft for pushing a bill through.
Sure. I also think we should move the nation's capital.
I agree. Move it. I want it moved to the Midwest.
Yeah. Someplace that has common sense and lobbyists would not want to venture into.
Absolutely.
Terre Haute, Indiana comes to mind.
John, people in Indiana don't even want to be in Terre Haute, Indiana.
That's right. What was that?
That was the NSA running diagnostics on us, John.
Oh, okay. Okay, because
we're talking about revamping Congress, and they're not happy about it.
That's right. I mean, all we mention is Terre Haute, and all of a sudden, bells and whistles go off.
But I don't have a bit of problem. Matter of fact, I'm with you. Let's get it out of D.C. Let's move it to the center of the country. We've got to shake things up.
Kansas.
Oh, I love friendliest. I travel extensively west of the Mississippi, and I have to say, Kansas has the friendliest people I've ever met in the U.S.
Now, the geo zones that you were talking of, where would West Virginia lie?
We would be in the mid-Atlantic. We would have Virginia, Kentucky, Maryland, pretty much from the Mason-Dixon down to, let's say, the southern border of North Carolina.
Huh. Okay. What would a state like West Virginia bring to the party?
That's why we have geozones instead of the individual states, John. The other states in their geozones would have to make West Virginia profitable to stop the drain of their local state economies. I think you would get states working together a lot better. Like Indiana and Illinois hate each other's guts economically. Illinois is a spend out till you're blind state, and Indiana's not. And we go back and forth with them a lot. So let's put states that have similar makeups together in the geo zones. And I think you're going to get cooperation. And if let's say Virginia's dependent on West Virginia doing well, they're going to invest in West Virginia also.
Now, Indiana and Illinois, we may hate them, but every Sunday, thousands of people get in their cars and cross the border and buy alcohol. My father used to drive from Indianapolis to Chicago on his liquor run about once a month. The prices were better, and you could buy liquor in Illinois 7 days a week instead of 6.
Yeah, same deal on the eastern Indiana. They go across the line, went to Ohio.
Well, I can remember when I turned 18, and I'm sure when you turned 18, we thought of one thing, and no, we thought of two things.
Couple of things, yeah.
Couple of things. One thing we probably weren't going to get, but the other one was 3.2 beer.
Oh yeah, John, I looked 20 years old when I was like 15. And we'd go to Kings Island, and everyone would just give me money, and I would charge them like $1. You know, $1 is a lot of money back in the early 70s. I would charge them $1 to buy them a beer.
Yeah, I mean, again, we didn't get along well with Ohio, but we sure utilized them just like we utilized Illinois. We would go to Kentucky, and we hated Kentucky. What would we get in Kentucky, Eli? Fireworks.
Oh yeah, along I-65, you bet.
So we would have to travel outside of the Hoosier State to get our liquor, even our watered down liquor, and our fireworks. And to this day, when I drive through Kentucky, there's a fireworks place at I think every interstate.
You betcha.
There.
Sign that little paper that you're going to set them off in Kentucky. I remember signing that.
Yeah, it's a strange relationship that states have, and I think that as strange as it is, the federal government makes it even worse.
Yeah, because they constantly pit the states against each other.
So, our solution to our screwed up government that isn't functioning real well, at least, is to, let's tick it off here. We're going to move our national capital somewhere into Kansas. Not a big city.
There aren't any, John.
Well, that's true. That's true. Um, what is Omaha? No, that's Nebraska.
That's Nebraska. Topeka's a nice town. I've traveled Kansas extensively.
Yeah, Topeka's not bad. Kansas City, Kansas. You wouldn't put it there.
Lawrence is nice. That's a small town that's big enough, I think, to support it.
Huh. Isn't there a prison there?
Yeah. And if we could stick our failed politicians in the prison, John.
We could. Wow, 2 birds, 1 stone. Yay, Kansas. So I think we've moved the national capital. We've gotten rid of all the politicians, and we're letting the states sort of self-govern in groups.
Absolutely.
And then sending the representatives from each group to Lawrence, Kansas. Oh, that's a university town. That's right.
Yes, it is.
Wow. I think that's what we do. We just move it to either Lawrence or Dodge City.
Talking about the size of the delegations, what's the old adage you always hear? Too many chefs spoil a soup, and that's exactly what's going on in D.C.
So we'd subdivide the country, and then boom,
we'd get things done.
Yeah, I like it. And as far as having a president, we don't need one. They're just getting in the way.
Yeah. All it does is lead to more divisiveness.
That's
Whichever of the 2 major parties is in office.
Yep.
They both do the same thing. They have it's not about the country. It's about forwarding their party. Well, we're going to eliminate that.
There we go. All right. Well, that about wraps it up. We came in with a problem. We solved it in 30 minutes or less. And we get to go out on a high note. I like that, Eli. We should do that. Gosh, I don't know. I don't think anyone's actually going to give us the opportunity, but
sadly not.
It was a problem, and damn it, we solved it. And the hell am I hearing? Who left?
Libby decided she has to go potty.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, well, there you have it. Another Wednesday evening, John Guy and Eli have saved the world in just 30 short minutes. Join us again next Wednesday when we make up another problem that's pissing us off and solving it. And for those of you, and I'm sure there's 1 or 2 out there,